it starts all over again.
Ryan, I mean, Davis doesn't have to issue marriage licenses to gay couples. Her deputy clerks, as we said, are doing that. Her name is no longer on the licenses, which was an issue apparently for her. Should that be enough of an accommodation to her convictions, in your opinion?
So I don't know. I don't know what her particular convictions are here, which is why I think the lawyer was giving those somewhat evasive answers. Only Ms. Davis knows whether or not this is enough. I just wonder, how did we get to this situation in the first place? We should try to do whatever we can ahead of time to balance these competing claims. You're correct, Jeffrey's correct, that the same-sex couples now are legally entitled to marriage licenses, so someone needs to be providing them with those licenses. The question is, does it need to be Ms. Davis, and does it need to be through her authority? My understanding is that's the sticking point right now, is whether or not this resolution settles her concern that it not be done with her title and through her authority as the county clerk.
But she is being paid by taxpayers, and some of those taxpayers are gay people. So why should gay people, Ryan, be asked to pay this woman's salary or part of her salary if she doesn't like them or just doesn't want to interact with them or doesn't want her name on their marriage licenses?
Sure. I mean, in the United States, we have a long history of accommodating public employees, civil servants, who have various conscientious objections. This goes to postal workers who had conscientious objections to delivering draft cards and processing draft cards, to IRS officials who had conscientious objections to processing the paperwork for nonprofits that they were morally opposed to, a variety of individuals who have had these situations. And we've always tried to accommodate them. We've accommodated the pacifists. We've accommodated the postal workers, the IRS officials.
Right.
The question is here, can we reach a common sense compromise that's a win-win for both sides?
And Jeff, I mean, arguably, the idea of her clerks being able to issue this is a compromise.
It is a compromise, but the important principle is that same-sex couples have exactly the same rights. Now, if in fact you could set up a system where they have exactly the same rights, where a deputy clerk gives the same, gives a marriage license in the same time period with the same legal authority, that could be a reasonable accommodation. But we also have to ask, how much accommodation should we allow? I mean, there are people in this country, there certainly were, and there still are, people who think interracial marriage violates God's law. Should we allow clerks to say, well, I'm just not going to deal with interracial couples?
Ryan, what about that? If there was a Muslim clerk in this office who decided that Kim Davis, on her second or third or fourth marriage, shouldn't get a license because this Muslim clerk doesn't believe in divorce, would that clerk have the right to say, I'm not going to issue this marriage license? And would all the people who are supporting her now, would they have supported a Muslim clerk doing this?
Well, I hope they would, because religious liberty and religious accommodations are for people of all faiths. So I hope this isn't a situation in which Kim Davis's supporters are just supporting her because she's Christian. We should support people of all faiths. And what the law requires is a reasonable accommodation that doesn't place undue burdens on the employer. Another way of phrasing that is it has to be a compelling government interest that's being pursued in the least restrictive way possible. So each and every one of these cases would have to be looked at individually, but I hope we would all want to work together to find a solution that really is a win-win solution, where both sides can be accommodated and we can move forward peacefully, because otherwise we're just going to perpetuate a culture war on this issue. And why do we want to repeat that? Why can't we find a way forward to live side by side, even while disagreeing about marriage?
And let's see what happens. I mean, a lot's going to depend on whether or not she decides to allow her clerks to continue on. As you said, that seems to be an accommodation.
Can I just make one